Mira and Isha had been inseparable since childhood, their friendship stitched together by years of shared dreams and late-night conversations. They were always up for an adventure, which was precisely why they found themselves trailing behind Rohan, their overly enthusiastic college mate, as he led them through the bustling corridors of the boys' hostel. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and cheap cologne, a mix of testosterone and desperation to impress. Boys roamed the halls with books in one hand and cricket bats in the other, their voices bouncing off the paint-chipped walls. "I just need to grab my notes from AVI room." "You'll like him, he's a bit of a flirt but mostly harmless," Rohan said with a chuckle, weaving through the crowd. Mira and Isha exchanged amused glances. They were used to the occasional flirtation, especially when stepping into what was essentially enemy territory. But they were here for the experience, the story they'd later laugh about over coffee. Their eyes landed on a boy sitting casually on the steps near Rohan's room. He wore a faded grey t-shirt and jeans, his fingers plucking gentle melodies from an old guitar. Messy hair fell over his forehead, but his sharp, playful gaze was hard to miss. "Ladies, I see Rohan brought back up today," the boy called out, his grin spreading wide and welcoming. "AVI, stop terrorizing everyone with your wannabe rockstar act," Rohan groaned, rolling his eyes. "So, you're Mira and Isha, huh? Rohan's told me about you too. But he didn't mention you were this lovely. Guess he wanted to keep all the charm to himself." AVI voice was smooth, disarming, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Mira and Isha laughed, shaking their heads at his effortless charm. But there was something else about him, something more genuine that peeked through his easy smile. They settled on the steps, waiting for Rohan to retrieve his notes. And somehow, AVI presence filled the silence. He joked, asked questions, listened with genuine interest. Mira found herself drawn to his humor, while Isha was charmed by his sincerity. Just as Rohan returned, waving a notebook triumphantly, AVI leaned back on his elbows, eyes dancing between Mira and Isha. "You know, I've been sitting here thinking. You're both incredible. So, I'll say this plainly, I like you. Both of you. Crazy, right?" His words hung in the air, bold and absurd. But the grin on his face hinted that he was dead serious. Mira and Isha blinked, momentarily speechless. Then laughter spilled out, breaking the tension. It was the kind of laugh that came from surprise and disbelief, but also from something else. "Wow, that's a first," Mira admitted, her cheeks flushed. "Definitely bold," Isha added, her smile betraying curiosity rather than rejection. AVI shrugged, unfazed. "Life's short. Why not be honest, right?" The girls exchanged a glance, one that spoke of interest despite the absurdity of it all. They left the hostel that day with his words replaying in their minds, an invitation they were both strangely tempted to accept. Days passed, but the memory of AVI's audacious confession clung stubbornly to Mira and Isha's thoughts. They joked about it, poked fun at his wild boldness, yet something about his carefree sincerity refused to be dismissed. It was Isha who finally said what they were both thinking. "Why not just meet him?" Isha suggested, her tone casual but her eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Worst case, we get a laugh. Best case, we find out if he's actually worth the hype." Mira hesitated before nodding, her own intrigue outweighing her reluctance. A quick text exchange later, and they found themselves at a cozy little cafe tucked away from the city's usual noise. AVI was already there, leaning back in his chair with that same roguish grin, as if he had expected them to show up all along. His gaze flickered between them, warmth sparking in his eyes. "Ladies," he greeted with an exaggerated bow of his head. "I'm honored you even considered my shameless invitation." His charm was relentless, but his voice held a sincerity that softened its edge. They slid into their seats, Mira on his left, Isha on his right, both of them acutely aware of the magnetic pull AVI seemed to wield. Conversation flowed effortlessly, AVI humor keeping them laughing while his genuine curiosity kept them talking. He didn't just flirt, he asked questions, leaned in to listen, remembered the little things. Mira found herself opening up about her love for art, while Isha shared her fascination with astronomy. And here I was, just a guy with a guitar and zero skills in painting or stargazing, AVI confessed with a laugh. Guess I'll just have to keep you both around to make me seem interesting. Maybe we'll consider it, Mira shot back, her playful smirk hinting at something more. Only if you can keep up, Isha added, her eyes sparkling with amusement. They spent hours in that tiny cafe, the world outside fading into insignificance. Mira couldn't deny the flutter of excitement in her chest whenever AVI attention fell on her, his words leaving an impression that went deeper than simple flattery. Isha was no different. Despite her guarded nature, she found herself drawn to AVI's unfiltered honesty and his knack for making her feel seen. Eventually, they wandered out into the quiet evening, AVI hands occasionally brushing against theirs as they walked side by side. The air was cool, crisp with possibility. Well, I think this counts as the best first date I've ever had, AVI announced, his voice lighter but his eyes still holding that thoughtful intensity. Not that I've ever had one quite like this. Mira laughed, the sound bubbling out of her before she could stop it. I think that's true for all of us. Isha nodded, her smile softer, more genuine. Yeah. This was unexpected. In a good way. AVI looked between them, his expression somehow hopeful and uncertain all at once. So, shall we do this again sometime? Mira and Isha exchanged a glance before answering in unison. Yes. The days that followed blurred into a whirlwind of texts, impromptu calls, and unexpected meetings. AVI's effortless charm continued to tug at Mira and Isha, but it was his genuine kindness that truly drew them in. His attention wasn't just scattered flotation, it was focused, meaningful. And somehow, neither girl felt neglected. He made time for them both, reaching out to Mira when she mentioned a stressful project, encouraging her creativity with sincere admiration. With Isha, his curiosity about her passion for astronomy was boundless, his questions genuine, his eagerness to learn contagious. The three of them met up often, sometimes for coffee, other times for quiet walks under the evening sky. It was during one of those walks that AVI invited them back to the hostel, promising a view from the rooftop that no cafe or park could compete with. Mira and Isha accepted, curiosity pulling them back to the place where this strange connection had begun. As they climbed the creaky stairs to the roof, laughter and music drifted from distant rooms. But up there, away from the noise and chaos, the world felt distant, the city spread out below them like a painting. They settled on a faded blanket AVI had brought up, the cool breeze rustling their hair. For a while, they spoke about everything and nothing, voices softened by the night's calm embrace. But there was something restless in the way AVI's gaze kept shifting, a nervousness that felt out of character. Finally, he broke the silence. I think it's time I stopped dodging the truth. You both deserve that much. His voice was steady but low, his fingers twitching slightly against his knee. Mira and Isha exchanged a glance, their own curiosity sharpening. Go on, Mira prompted gently. AVI let out a slow breath, his eyes locked on theirs. I wasn't joking the day I met you. I like you both. I've tried to figure out if one of you feels more right than the other, but that's not how it is. It's crazy, but I just can't choose. And I don't want to hurt either of you by pretending I can. His confession hung between them, raw and unfiltered. For the first time, AVI's easygoing smile was nowhere to be found. Instead, his expression held vulnerability, something real and unguarded. Mira's heart pounded in her chest, her mind racing to process his words. But instead of rejection, she felt a strange warmth blooming inside her. Isha's eyes narrowed, not in anger but contemplation. So, you're saying you like us both? And you're not playing games? Not at all, AVI replied, his tone sincere. I don't expect you to feel the same way, but I had to be honest. I don't want to lose either of you, even if that means just staying friends. A silence stretched between them, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was filled with possibility, a fragile understanding beginning to take shape. Mira's lips twitched into a hesitant smile. Well, honesty's a good place to start, isn't it? Yeah, Isha agreed, her voice softer now. Maybe it's time we're honest with ourselves, too. In the quiet that followed AVI confession, Mira and Isha found themselves confronting emotions they'd only half admitted before. The rooftop's cool breeze did little to calm their racing thoughts, but neither girl wanted to leave. Mira spoke first, her voice careful but steady. "I can't lie and say I haven't felt something for you, AVI. You're impossible to ignore, and I mean that in a good way." She laughed softly, her cheeks tinged with color. "But it's more complicated than that. Isha and we've always been a team. And now, here you are, somehow fitting into that picture." AVI's shoulders eased, the tension in his posture loosening just a bit. "I never wanted to come between you two. If anything, I admire how close you are. It's rare to find something that real." Isha's gaze was thoughtful, her fingers tracing idle patterns on the blanket. "You know, when you first said you liked us both, I thought you were just playing some stupid game. But you've been nothing but real with us since then. And the more time we spend together, the more it feels like you're supposed to be here." AVI eyes widened, hope brightening his expression. "So, what are you saying?" Mira glanced at Isha, their silent conversation flowing as naturally as it always had. Then she turned back to AVI, her words measured. "We're saying maybe we don't have to figure it all out right now. We just need to be honest with each other, take things one day at a time." "Yeah," Isha agreed, her smile cautious but genuine. "If you're willing to try, then so are we." AVI's laugh was one of pure relief, his smile stretching wide and genuine. "I don't think I've ever been this happy to be uncertain about something. As long as we're figuring it out together, I'm all in." The night stretched on, their conversation weaving between light-hearted jokes and deeper confessions. With every passing moment, the strange tension between them seemed to dissolve, replaced by something warmer, something true. By the time they finally decided to leave, the city's lights had dimmed, and the world felt softer, quieter. AVI walked them home, his hands brushing against theirs as if testing the boundaries of this new, delicate understanding. Before parting ways, he looked at them both, his gaze steady. "So, same time tomorrow." Mira laughed, her voice light and free. "Why not? We've come this far." Isha nodded, her expression calm but her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Yeah. Let's see where this goes." As they walked away, Mira and Isha couldn't stop smiling, their shared glances filled with a mix of curiosity and hope. Maybe this was crazy. Maybe it was reckless. But it was also real. And for now, that was more than enough.